So I'm cutting off the ear loops because they get in the way when we're testing. They're not really part of the test itself. And then what I do is I mount this on the aluminum plate to make sure that it's properly sealed to the plate. This is beeswax. It's what NIOSH uses for the same exact test to help ensure that you get a good seal that's easy to remove when you're finished. I then use a brush to really get a good seal because there are gaps in the wax that I put on. And I look all around to make sure that there aren't any gaps. It looks good. I typically then mark the mask with a number just so I know which one it was I tested. And then from here I'll put it on the mask testing machine.
That's over here?
Yes. So I'm going to start the test by hitting these two buttons. What happened is it's blowing this mist at 85 liters per minute through the mask, and it's going to be measuring the concentration of the particles of salt on one side of the mask versus the other, and that's the efficiency of the filter. It reports out every minute what percentage of the material got through, and also the pressure that's crossing the mask, so it gives you an idea of how much resistance the mask is creating to breathing. What I'm seeing now is the pressure drop seems to be going up quite a bit. It's now at about 42 millimeters of water, so it's a pressure that's a little bit higher than I typically see with these masks. And then the good thing is the filtration is really good. We're better than 99%. It's even getting close to 100% filtration, which, you know, is really amazingly good for this kind of a mask. But the thing that I'm a little concerned about is the pressure, and we'll get a better sense of that when we do the other test. But right now it's saying these pressures are starting to go up quite a bit, which would suggest that, you know, it's working very well because air is not going through it. That's one of the concerns I have, or not enough air. filtration's very similar to what we were seeing before, better than 99%, so that's very good. I'm still a little bit concerned about the pressure, but as I said, we'll take a look with the pressure tests that we're going to do next and see if, in fact, it's as bad as these numbers seem to suggest they may be. So in this test, what I'm doing is putting pure air through the mask at 85 liters a minute. It's a pretty high flow rate, higher than you might expect with normal breathing. But in strenuous situations, like someone doing CPR, for example, you might get flow rates approaching that. And the idea is to figure out how much, or to measure how much pressure it takes to push air through at that speed. And it gives you an idea of how breathable the mask is. So I often say that you can make a mask that's a perfect filter. No particles get through. It's a plastic bag and you can't breathe through it. So the pressure is going to be very, very high in that situation. With a mask like this, you would hope that the pressure is below 1 inch of water, which is what will be indicated by this over here. Based on what we were seeing before, I'm beginning to wonder whether we're going to see a higher pressure because these masks seem to provide a pretty high breathing resistance. So that's another consideration. When we're looking at masks, there are really two things that we're particularly concerned about. One is the obvious, the filtration efficiency, but the other thing that we're concerned about is, whether or not it presents too much resistance to breathing. That can be very fatiguing, and it also can lead to a buildup of carbon dioxide in the mask and make people feel bad, even pass out if it gets high enough. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to allow the pressure to come in, or the air to flow through the mask. It's going to get kind of noisy while I do it initially, and then it'll settle down. Okay, we're at 85 liters a minute, and it's showing 0.4 inches of water. It's not terrible. It's high, but it's not terrible. So I'm thinking that would be considered a pass. It's not an issue. So far, everything looks good. The 99%, 99+% filtration efficiency is very good. The pressure, the breathing resistance is higher than I might expect, but it's not unreasonable and it's not unacceptable. It's within the range that is considered acceptable by NIOSH. So the test that we do is actually a two-directional test. We test air going into the mask and air going through it. It should be pretty much the same, but sometimes you do see a little bit of a difference. So I'm now testing what would be equivalent to somebody inhaling versus exhaling. The other one was exhaling. And again, the pressure is about 0.4 inches of water, that's acceptable. So I don't think that this mask would present an unreasonably high resistance to breathing, although it's higher than some other masks that I've looked at. One of the things we observed when we were doing a lot of KN95 testing is that the quality isn't always there. So you would see a lot of variation. So for example, you might see some testing at 95% and others testing at 75%, all within the same model. So that's the kind of thing that we're looking for. That's why we test so many of them, just to make sure that we're seeing consistent numbers across the board.